Judy Ann Stage Alexander Cory will celebrate her 75th birthday this year in October. In those years, Judy's life has been defined by her roles as a daughter, wife, mother, and grandmother. Professionally, she has defined her life with one job: hairstylist. But not just your average hairstylist. For more than 4 decades, Judy worked in the magical world of Hollywood movies. Spend time with this engaging woman, and she might share stories of working with Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, Barbra Streisand, and Robin Williams, while working on the sets of movies such as The Matrix, Schindler's List, Hook, and Forrest Gump. It's a career that Judy says was inspired by her uncle, who worked as an assistant director at Paramount Studios, and which she knew she wanted to do from her earliest memories. It's also a career that earned her the respect of her fellow movie industry professionals and 2 Academy Award nominations.
I started working when I was 14 years old. I went to work in a little, it was called a department store, but it was just kind of almost like a 5 and 10. Mm-hmm. I did things like, stocked, and then I was able to do art things. So like at Easter, I wrote children's names on Easter eggs, and I wrapped packages. I got to be in the wrapping department because my mother was excellent at wrapping packages, so I guess I got it. It's a little bit generic.
It sounds to me like you have an ability to have attention to detail. Is that accurate?
Oh, it's probably more than accurate. I make my neighbors crazy.
But it also is what has helped you to be successful, because you look at the little details and make sure they're done, like Easter eggs, right?
Like Easter eggs. After I left Quigley's, I worked in a bakery for a while, and then I worked in a beauty shop next door to the bakery, and I think that's what got me into hair. At that point, I didn't know that I was going to be doing hair. I wanted to be a fashion designer in the motion picture industry. And I never wanted to be an actor or an actress or anything like that. So when I graduated from high school, I was 17 years old. I lied about my age to NBC, and I got a job working as what they called in those days a Girl Friday, which today is a production assistant, in the first 13 Bonanza shows at Paramount Studios. At that time, women could be 3 things. You could be a hairdresser. You couldn't even be a makeup artist at that time. There was only one woman that, when they formed the unions, was able to get into makeup, but after that it was just men. The women were hairdressers, or costume, which I kind of liked, or a script supervisor. So my decision was I really wanted to get into fashion design. But working at Paramount at 17 in this office, I used to have to go over to Western Costume, and that's where they wanted most of the costumers to do their training. And at that time it's a different building now, but it was like an 8-story building, and it was full of fabulous costumes, but they were old, musty, been used 20, 30, 40 years ago and stuff, and I thought, this isn't for me. With all those little clothes. So that's when I decided hair. I knew the hairdressers on the sets of the Bonanza shows and stuff, and I thought, I can do that. I already knew some of it. So I went to beauty school with the direct idea that I was going to work in the studios. And the people at the beauty school just thought I was whistling in the wind. And I worked in shops for a while to get experience. And my uncle, as soon as he could get me a job, got me a job. Because he knew it, I had an in.
So what was your first job, do you remember?
Wagon train. Ward
Bond, that's who it was, yeah. A TV show. So not movies, but television.
Television. I started with a lot of television. At that time, to get into the hairdressers union, makeup and hair union, you had to have 30 days working on something. And then you had to apply to take a test. You didn't get your 30 days all at one time. Like I worked on Wagon Train for 7 days, you know, and then I worked on Petticoat Junction or Beverly Hillbillies for just a few days to help the regular people on the show. And I would work on those shows until I got my 30 days. I got 29 days and I was laid off. I was at Warner Brothers and it was devastating because I only needed one more day. As I became wiser, I realized that the older people just didn't want new people in.
There was a method to
There was a method to that, laying you off at 29 days.
Mm-hmm.
But I was walking out the gate, and at that point you had gates, you know, it was all studio system stuff. The guard at the gate stopped me and said, "Are you Judy Alexander?" That was the name at that time. And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "You need to call." Why, I don't know. He said, "You need to call Larry Germain at Universal."
Did you know the name?
Yeah, he was the head of the department at Universal.
The
head of the hair department. Then it was Studio System. They actually had departments with heads of departments.
Okay.
I called Larry Germain. This is when you had to find a phone booth and drop coins in it. I called Larry Germain, and he said, "Can you go to work tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes, I can." And I worked at Universal for 5 years.
So you didn't even ask any questions. You just said, "I'll be there."
I went there. I worked. They had apprentices at that time. I was not an apprentice, but they had 2 apprentices. And they trained me just like I was one of the apprentices. Larry Germain was my mentor. And they used to fight to keep me there because it used to be that you... And I don't mean to be tooting my horn. I was just fortunate and lucky that they liked me and that I was able to do the work that they wanted me to do. And at the same time, I got all the training that the apprentices got. And that was my home studio. They would not lay me off. They went to arbitration 3 times with the union because when it got slow, the union wanted everybody that was new laid off. Because keep in mind, I still wasn't in the union. I got my 30 days. I applied to take my test, but they didn't give a test for 5 years.
I don't understand. Just to keep you out again?
Yes. To keep, you know, when I finally took my test after 5 years, there were 12 of us that took the test.
And was it written, or was it you had to do a hairdo?
It was 2 days. Part of it was written, and part of it was practical. And they would give you a model and hair pieces, and they would say, "Do this model like 1884," and then you had to put on a hair lace wig.
But after 5 years, you had to have been pretty comfortable.
And the test was given at Universal, so the people that were passing out the hair pieces and stuff, I was very lucky. But then they took months to tell us our scores or to tell us if we got in the union.